There's a certain stillness in airports, a kind of shared humanity. People from all walks of life, all corners of the world, moving through the same tunnels, sitting in the same chairs, waiting to go somewhere or come back from something. In the bustling departures terminal of Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, a man stood silently at gate B42, dressed simply in a black zip-up jacket, dark jeans, and well-worn leather shoes. He appeared unassuming. No flashy entourage, no dark sunglasses, just a book in one hand and a leather satchel on his shoulder. But this man was not just anyone. This was Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fearless president of Burkina Faso. Yet, few around him knew that. He waited quietly, not announcing himself, not calling for attention. His face was calm, eyes observant. To anyone watching, he was perhaps just a professor, or a diplomat, or a traveler from West Africa, and to many, that was all he ever needed to be. But for one woman, that wasn't enough. Karen Whitmore was a woman of precision, at least in her mind. Early 50s, well-groomed, her nails freshly polished in pearlescent pink, her designer bag clutched like a shield. She took pride in her sense of situational awareness. She'd read books about safety. She subscribed to newsletters on travel vigilance. And most of all, she believed she had good instincts about people. She watched Ibrahim from her business class seat for a aisle. He wasn't loud, he wasn't disruptive, but he wasn't like her, and in her eyes, that was reason enough. The boarding was halfway through. Ibrahim moved down the aisle slowly, stopping once to help an elderly woman lift her heavy handbag into the overhead bin. He smiled, nodded gently, and resumed moving forward, checking his seat number. Karen narrowed her eyes as he approached. She looked him up and down. No Rolex, no briefcase, no Louis Vuitton carry-on, no accent that she recognized. He slid into the row beside her, 4B window seat. Karen's breath tightened. She leaned over to the flight attendant passing by. "Excuse me," she whispered, her voice tinged with forced courtesy. "Is this man in the right seat? I think there's been a mistake." The young attendant blinked, then smiled. "Let me check his boarding pass." But Ibrahim was already holding it up. The attendant scanned it, nodded. "Yes, he's in for B." "That's correct." Karen's lips tightened. She was unsatisfied. She waited a few seconds, then leaned over toward Ibrahim. "Excuse me, sir," she said, voice colder now. "This is business class." Ibrahim turned calmly to face her. "Yes, that's what my boarding pass says." She frowned. "Where are you coming from?" "Paris," he said. "No, I mean, where are you from?" He paused, studying her. "Burkina Faso." She nodded slowly, as though confirming something in her mind. "You know," she continued, "there have been cases of people sneaking into upgraded seats. Not saying that's you, of course, but the airline should really double-check." "I paid for the seat," he said. Soft, dramatic piano music begins. Voiceover starts with a slow, emotional tone. The truth has a strange way of revealing itself. Not with the loud bang of a gavel, not always with the grand announcement, but sometimes, with the simple turning of a head, a look, a single sentence that slices through arrogance like a blade through silk. As the door to the aircraft closed behind the woman who just moments earlier had demanded the removal of a man she didn't recognize, silence reigned. There was no applause, no outrage, no confrontation. Only a profound, collective embarrassment. For her, for the assumption, for the shame that now clung to the cabin like humidity. The man in seat 4B, now fully revealed to be President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, didn't react with bitterness. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't point fingers. Instead, he sat, opened his leather notebook, and began to write. 20 minutes earlier, flashback begins. The officer stood frozen for a second longer than expected. His eyes scanned the government identification, his mouth parted, his hand instinctively moved to his radio. He spoke in rapid French, confirming identification. "We have a diplomatic passenger on board. I repeat, this is the president of Burkina Faso, code yellow de-escalate." The cabin crew leaned closer. "President?" The young stewardess who'd first approached him turned red. The older officer now faced Ibrahim, his demeanor entirely transformed. "Sir, I must apologize. We were unaware." Ibrahim responded with a warm nod, even a faint smile. "You were just doing your duty." Karen, meanwhile, sat stunned, still standing between rows 4 and 5, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. Her lips moved. "Wait, what? What is he talking about?" The officer stepped aside and announced it clearly, this time for everyone to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We would like to formally acknowledge the presence of President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, who is here on diplomatic business en route to the United Nations Peace and Climate Summit in New York." Gasps. A cough from somewhere in the back. The quiet shutter of phone cameras clicking, and then a single murmur. "Oh my God." Karen turned crimson. No, that's not possible. He can't be. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to," came the captain's voice, now stepping out from the cockpit. "Madam, you assumed. That's the problem." Voiceover shifts cutting deeper now. "Sometimes, our worst behaviors aren't the ones we scream. They're the ones we think we can get away with when no one is looking." And for Karen Whitmore, it was the quiet entitlement in her voice. She looked at Ibrahim, now surrounded by a small gathering of airport personnel, flight crew, and security. Not one of them spoke above a respectful hush. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm not a racist. I didn't know who he was." And that was the moment. Voiceover begins gently, with emotional piano music rising in the background. When a stone is thrown into still water, it creates a ripple, one that grows wider and wider, touching the shores long after the stone is gone. That's what happened the moment the plane landed in New York. Not because of turbulence, not because of delay, but because of the storm that had quietly brewed at 35,000 feet and was about to crash into the world below. The landing, the plane's wheels kissed the tarmac. Everyone stayed seated, but the silence in the cabin had shifted. It was no longer heavy with discomfort, it was quiet with reflection. President Ibrahim Traoré stood calmly, adjusting his jacket. The stewardess, the same one who had earlier doubted his place in business class, now approached him with watery eyes. "Sir, I just want to say, I was wrong." He looked her in the eye, kindly but firmly. "What matters is what you do next." She nodded, swallowing back emotion. Meanwhile, Karen remained in her seat, frozen. The woman who had once stood tall in accusation now looked like she had aged 20 years in 3 hours. The confidence that had once puffed her chest had drained, replaced by something raw, shame. She avoided the cameras as they exited the plane, but it was too late. The footage had already gone viral, voiceover shifting into a wider lens. In the hours that followed, the internet did what it always does. It judged, it dissected, it memed. And yet, this time something deeper happened. People weren't just laughing. They were thinking. The video had been recorded from 3 different angles. One captured Karen's raised voice. Another showed President Traoré standing silently. A third, taken by a teenager across the aisle, showed the moment the officer saluted and said, "Mr. President." That line alone sent shivers across continents. Mr. President. Within 24 hours, the video hit 62 million views on TikTok. #President on the plane trended globally. Humiliation at 35,000 feet, The Guardian. Black men wrongly accused turns out to be president, CNN. Dignity in silence, The New York Times. Racism exposed on a plane again, Al Jazeera. Karen Whitmore's name, though initially concealed, was eventually revealed, and with it came a flood of reactions. Some mocked, some raged, some debated. But a rare few tried to understand. Back at Karen's house, Karen sat at her kitchen table, blinds closed, phone turned face down. The voicemail was full, emails unread. The world she'd once curated, filled with social clubs, filtered Instagram posts, and manicured brunches, was crumbling. Her daughter, Emily, sat across from her, arms folded. "Do you understand now, Mom?" she said quietly. Karen looked up, exhausted. "I wasn't trying to be racist." Emily's eyes didn't flinch. "But you were." Karen's lip trembled. I didn't mean to, that's not enough anymore, Millie said. Your intent doesn't erase the impact.